Hello, LinkedIn makers and movers. Today, I'm excited to have a growth marketing expert and early pioneer on LinkedIn and someone I call a friend. On LinkedIn, you might know him for his spiky and controversial points of view, but I think that's a function of him being from the Bronx. In general, New Yorkers are direct and willing to call a spade a spade. And in that respect, he's dropped a lot of value bombs on the marketing community in the last few years. Ladies and gents, it's Gaetano DiNardi, one of the top growth consultants in B2B SaaS. But before I pass the mic to Gaetano, I wanted to dig into his background. So, fun fact, Gaetano fell into marketing on accident. He is a musician and songwriter. It's been a while, but he's known to post guitar jams and music videos on LinkedIn. And many moons ago, he was trying to get found by the recording industry. So he started a blog and stumbled into SEO. That combination of interests led to a job at iPullRank with SEO guru Michael King, who also is a marketer and musician. That's also how I met Gaetano. We worked on Bob Vila's content strategy for a hot minute. And shortly after, I went to Pipedrive, a small business CRM, and this is over 10 years ago, and I hired Gaetano to run point on the SEO strategy. And that was Gaetano's entry point into the world of marketing and sales technology, one of the hardest software verticals to market into. Let's say it's just a tough crowd. They know how persuasion works. Gaetano had some big wins at Pipedrive, and from there, he went into Sales Hacker to run marketing. That's how many people who are listening probably first heard of him. During that time at Sales Hacker, he helped the community and the blog and the company grow like a weed. Not only did all that take off, but so does his reputation. The Sales Hacker team was one of the first to take a team-led approach to sharing content on LinkedIn. And when Sales Hacker was acquired by Outreach, Gaetano moved on to Nextiva, where he held the role of Director of Growth. And he was there for 3 years while the company grew from 70 million to 200 million. Much of what is attributed to growth strategy is led by Gaetano's team. After that, he went over to B2C security technology company Aura, where he grew organic traffic from 0 to 200,000 visitors per month in 6 months, which is insane. During that time, Gaetano was also the co-host of season 1 of Demand Gen Live with Chris Walker. At this point, his reputation hit escape velocity, and he struck out on his own. Since then, he's worked with some of the hottest names in B2B SaaS, Gong, Customer, Cognism, Demandbase, HockeySack, to name a few. And what's notable, while Gaetano invested in LinkedIn, he never went full bore with a 7-day-a-week strategy like many people are doing today. His approach was a slow and steady wins-the-race strategy, posting twice a week with whatever was on his mind. He always led with value, and he was never shy about rocking the boat. Today, he has 50,000 followers, and he still shares his knowledge on search and growth marketing frequently. And with that, let's give a warm welcome to Gaetano DiNardi. Welcome to the LinkedIn Famous Podcast, the show where we get real about what it takes to build a personal brand on LinkedIn that gets real business results. We're talking about driving revenue from a personal LinkedIn profile by sharing real and authentic stories and points of view. I am Brad Zomick, your host and the founder of Spectrumer, a personal brand consultancy that helps founders and executives get LinkedIn famous. Join me for unfiltered conversations from the trenches of LinkedIn. We'll meet CEOs, go-to-market executives, subject matter experts, and company employees with blockbuster LinkedIn results. We'll unpack strategy and leave you with tactical advice to grow your personal brand and demand for your company's products and services. All right, LinkedIn hustlers, it's time to level up.
Wow, what an introduction, man. Thank you so much. That was super well researched, very well pointed. I mean, we've known each other for a long time, so you obviously have known a lot about me, like on a personal level and professional, but man, thank you for such a great intro. That was awesome.
I had a little bit of a cheat sheet, 10 years of it, but it's a pleasure to have you here. Is there anything about your background that you want to double click on?
Oh man, I don't know. I think it's definitely been more heavy on content, website optimization, SEO. In recent years, I've really been double clicking into Google Ads, not as a fear that SEO is dying and I need to protect myself from a career standpoint, but it's because it's a natural evolution and clients really want it. They actually want to unify SEO with PPC under one person. And it makes a lot of sense to do that, I think, but nothing really much more to click on than that.
All right, then maybe you can tell us something about yourself that our audience couldn't tell from your LinkedIn profile.
All right. Well, let's see. I think I posted about my baby boy once or twice. So I'm a new father this year. So unless you've been following me for a while, you probably wouldn't know that. But aside from musician and being a dad, I love basketball and I love tennis and I play a lot in Miami. So that's probably one thing you wouldn't know.
It's good to live down south where it's nice and warm, where you get to play sports outside all the time.
That's right. That's right.
We're emerging from winter here in New York. It's starting to feel kind of springy, and it's a good feeling. But sometimes during the winter, I wish I was down there with you in Miami.
Yeah, it's the number one reason why I left New York. It was just too cold, too bitter cold. The cold that hurts your bones. You can't do that anymore.
Something to aspire to one day. So let's get into your LinkedIn journey. Dial back the clock. What motivated you to start investing in your LinkedIn presence? How did it all start?
Yeah, I didn't have any specific goal actually. So it's not like I like today, no diss to anybody who has these like systems, but they have a lot of people out there who I guess they're part of the now B2B creator economy. You can templatize LinkedIn, you can formalize it. You can really explode your visibility if you follow certain tactics and techniques that are shared pretty, maybe some you can say are through the grapevine, and then others you can say are more widely shared techniques and tactics for growing your following, such as the comment pizza for this downloadable, which I've refused to do that one, right? But there's a lot of those gimmicks. So the goal initially was, let me just spread the message and the knowledge of the content that we're producing through Sales Hacker. That was a company that I led marketing at back in 2017, 2018. So it was just really to bring visibility to the content we were producing there and nothing much more than that.
And when you first started, was there any kind of challenges or mistakes that or learnings along the way?
It was really early in those days. It was completely the Wild West. It was untapped. In fact, it was the emergence of the so-called broetry.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to mention the name of the person who really gamed the system hard, but there's a person out there who really disappeared now. You don't see him anymore. But at the time, he was the person that really pioneered the one line by one line by one line space, space, space technique to create these sort of like overly ridiculous stories with a stupid twist at the end. It was a formula. It was a gimmick that worked at the time. Sorry if you hear my son crying in the background, by the way.
Oh, it's all good. That's a first for this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll memorialize this moment for.
We'll memorialize this moment for sure. But yeah, I mean, that was the gimmick of the time. It was in 2018. That was the main gimmick of the time. And I think there wasn't really any challenges, but it was just like seeing all the new emerging gimmicks. And I don't know, I didn't jump on those bandwagons. I kind of just stuck to, you know what, let me just not do that. So I think, I don't know if there was a challenge, but it was just being aware of all the gimmicks.
Right. Actually, I think the guy's name had come up once. Somebody brought him up, and he had the BAM F Media company.
Okay, yeah, that's that. There he is. Yeah,
That's the guy. Yeah, yeah. One day we'll have to kind of take him out of his hole. Maybe he cashed out. He made his money on the brochery and
yeah,
went into quiet hiding.
yeah. I think so. I think he did generate some sort of agency off this. Maybe he was the first LinkedIn guru agency. I don't know what to call it at that time, but yeah, maybe he did milk that cash cow for all it was worth and then just, sailed off into the sunset.
Did anything evolve for you as the platform changed, it grew, changed roles? Did you evolve your brand or what you talked about or any approach over the years?
Yeah. So I think because I was one of the first marketers that was really posting a lot about sales, but not in like a cheesy, corny way. Like really, we were one of the first brands that were putting out the heavy hitting topics that were more strategic in nature, not stuff like 10 cold calling hacks. Yeah, we had stuff like that, but we also had go-to-market strategy, go-to-market motion. We were one of the first to really push out account-based strategies, account-based selling. And we would also get contributors from top companies to pen these guest posts on Sales Hacker, and then we would repurpose them on LinkedIn I guess I was one of the first people to realize that posting links just gets you totally demoted in the algorithmic visibility. So I was one of the first, I guess, to do link in the comment. I hate that you
Yes.
still have to do that, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, I guess the takeaway is that in doing this, I was able to collaborate with people that were way more advanced than me in their career. Like I was what you would call a stretch VP of marketing. It was like a 10-person company with a bunch of freelancers. I'm no VP, but I guess Max gave me that title so that it would give us the appearance of being larger than we actually were. And then when you're dealing with CMOs, they're like, oh, this person's a VP. He must be more experienced or more whatever, more tenured. And I guess having conversations with CMOs when you have a VP title is like better.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting way to kind of raise the credibility and the bar. And probably it did something for your content too. Your title shows up right next to the posts, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was totally title inflation, 1000% title inflation, right?
Yeah.
But it worked. In that time, it worked. And when I noticed that was happening over time, is the more I collaborated with more top people, that became a flywheel of momentum. And so then I would start working with more people, and then I would be a first degree connection to more and more and more and more CMOs, VPs of marketing, head of demand gen, VP sales, chief revenue officer. And that was actually how I sort of accidentally built a very strong network of first degree connections through all these content collaborations that were just constantly happening. So that's kind of how it got started.
It's interesting. So yeah, having that user generated blog community, powerful impact on your career and outside of just the LinkedIn content itself.
1000%. Yeah. Like if it was just me doing all the content without the user generated contributions and then cycling that information back through LinkedIn. So the repurpose strategy really worked nicely at that time. So you could there was no AI then, but you could summarize the post, like top takeaways or whatever. You had to do it manually, but you could do it. Put it in a post, tag the person who wrote it, link in the comments. And just by doing that, it would circulate. And then I would connect with these people. And then that just kept cycling over and over and over again. I would do that week after week after week after week. I did that for like 2 years straight. And it worked.
I'm kind of curious if you would still do that today, because obviously SEO has changed a lot. And so you were building a lot of content on the blog, pushing it out to LinkedIn. Would you invert that these days? Put something out on LinkedIn, see if it sinks or swims, and move it to. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, that's also interesting. But the problem with blogs is no one really wants to read them anymore
Yeah.
unless it's written by someone that people really want to hear from, right? So like, for example, there's a few people out there that anytime they drop something, I go read it for sure. So like Rand Fishkin, I always read his stuff. A guy named Dave Kellogg, I always read his stuff, but I don't see them teasing stuff on LinkedIn and then migrating it back to blog. I kind of see them doing this concurrent promotion at the same time where they drop the blog, they put a little teaser on LinkedIn. I see Rand Fishkin doing videos talking about his post. Kevin Indig also does that. And then they promote the post through link in the comments, or sometimes Rand just posts the link with a video. Like he doesn't care. Plus his reach is so massive, they can't really suppress him algorithmically too much because he's so massive in terms of reach.
Yeah, he's real famous. But I would say he used to be big on Twitter, and obviously he still has a blog, but you tell he moved over most of his stuff to LinkedIn, which was interesting.
He did. I still think blogging has a place when you have a complicated subject that you really cannot explain through in depth on LinkedIn. Sure, you could do LinkedIn Pulse articles. A lot of people don't like them. Personally, I don't either. I would rather have my own blog where I can generate my own traffic, drive people to my email list, right? I think I'd rather do that. But I think the days of just sort of like short, quick hit blogging are kind of done. People are utilizing Substack for that now, which could potentially be better. I see a Substack LinkedIn combo play working nicely for a lot of people. But I do think a traditional blog has its place for authors that are notable and for topics that are complex and hard to explain in like a short post.
Oh, that's a great point. So in doing research, I noticed you have a brand spanking new website. Looks very slick. And there's a blog there that's The website must be a couple months old, but I think there's a blog post in February. How are you
Yeah.
thinking about your own content strategy for that and for LinkedIn? What does that look
Yeah.
like these days?
Yeah. So the reason why I launched the professional website is because I was tired of explaining over and over and over again to people what it is that I actually do to help companies. So now I just send them a link to like the My Offerings page and they're like, oh, yeah, I get it. And it just looks more polished. It's just nicer. I've been running actually off of a Gmail for 4 years. I've been on my own as a growth consultant since 2021 now, running off of a personal Gmail. Maybe not the most polished way to be doing things. And so I finally decided to port everything over to a professional domain, launch a site, and get that going. But on the flip side, it also shows you that if you're scrappy and you do great work, it doesn't really matter. You can be successful with a Gmail. You could do things on the cheap. So maybe that's a good takeaway for people that are maybe stuck or thinking about making the leap into consulting and they're holding themselves back because they don't have a big fancy website or whatever. But in terms of the actual content, I'm just going to be writing in-depth topics that come up in my day to day that I find in my consulting life and work that I want to elaborate on, things that are too complicated to explain in a LinkedIn post. And then I'll promote it through LinkedIn. And it's not going to be a high volume play. It's going to be no AI, all super authentic, every line written by me kind of thing. Maybe one post a month, slow burn, low volume, high impact. That's the way I think about it.
And how do you think about your LinkedIn content strategy related to that?
Yeah, I think so. There's little quick hit micro things that come up that I just want to get off my chest. The most recent thing I shared is a good example of that. Kevin Indig has new information about brand search being one of the biggest predictors for ranking in chat GPT searches. That's a nice little juicy quick hit nugget. Share that. I didn't put much thought into it. I just shared it, gave my little 2 cents, and it popped. It got 30 reposts, hundreds of comments, interactions, whatever. And I didn't have to do any work for that. I just simply reposted it.
Mhm.
Now, that's a great use case for LinkedIn where you just have a top of mind quick hit. For something more complex, for example, making the case for and against Google brand defense campaigns, Google Ads. Okay, that's a very nuanced topic. I could probably summarize that in a LinkedIn post, but people want the meat potatoes, right? I wrote a post on AirOps regarding the hidden dangers of programmatic SEO, why it fails, why it succeeds, examples, good and bad, my perspective, things that have happened with clients, right? That's a lot of stuff. I got to map that out in a real post. So that's kind of the way I'm trying to think about it is like little quick hits, LinkedIn, complex long form, blog.
What about some of the people who are doing this or want to do LinkedIn or even want to have a blog with a content strategy for their business? How do you think about the order of operations? What do I do first? Should I be doing stuff on the blog when I'm getting started? Or is there a better place to start?
Ooh, I mean, that's also a good question. I think like there's no specific rule book on it. You need to balance what is your strength? What are you really good at? And where do you already have some leverage? So let's just say I'm great on video, but I'm a terrible writer. I'm probably going to go YouTube, then upload my videos natively into LinkedIn, go for a video first combo strategy, LinkedIn, YouTube, something like that. Maybe shorts, right? I'm probably going to lean into my strengths. If I already have a newsletter, but I don't have much of a LinkedIn following and I'm a better writer, I might go blog and then LinkedIn on the tail end of that. So I think it's figuring out what's my strengths, where do I have leverage, but then also what is the goal as well. Like me for generating clients for my business has been 100% LinkedIn and referrals from LinkedIn and existing clients. Not one person has ever found me through a SEO surge or something like that. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't even need a blog to be successful. I didn't even need a personal website to be successful. I did all of this on my own through just hand-to-hand combat, sending manual connection requests to people. I didn't use any of the bot systems, which are now all banned, but at that time you could have used some. So yeah, it depends on what your goal is, what you're trying to do. If you're a big agency, maybe your playbook changes. If you're a SaaS company, maybe your playbook changes. But for me personally, it was invest on LinkedIn, build the leverage there, 50K followers of high quality people. It's hard to beat that.
Right. I think there's an interesting correlation when you talked about the post you just reshared with brand having a pretty big impact on search. There is no, I mean, you're the demand capture guy, but there's no demand capture without demand being created. So it's, one could say it's a chicken or egg thing, but it's not, right? You really need to kind of have people thinking about the problem and the solution before they even open up a browser on what to do about it.
Yeah, you can't capture something that can't be captured. Like you need to create it, right? So,
Or something that doesn't exist.
or something, yeah, you can't capture demand for something that doesn't exist. And this is actually one of the biggest prerequisites for even doing search, right? You want to find the sweet spot between max level saturation, like EVM platforms, stay away. But something obscure, no demand, like, I don't know, AI automation robots for doing personalized outreach videos. Yeah, probably no demand yet just for that. But somewhere in the middle, there's probably a lot of emerging markets that have growing demand but are not yet at saturation point. That's what you want to look for when it comes to search. I think for LinkedIn, none of those prerequisites really matter. It's just how willing are you to stick it out for the long run if you're starting from a very low point.
Right. Yeah, I would say that's a good point. Like when you got started, it was
It was
like
zero.
pushing the rock down the hill, right?
Yeah,
Because there were a lot of people scrolling, but there weren't very many people creating. Today, it's a stamina game.
1000%. I mean, the way I look at my timing on the LinkedIn investment was like similar to buying Bitcoin in 2017. Right? We bought Bitcoin in 2017, year of
2012.
gold. 2012, yeah, for 2012, hopefully you're out of here, right? You should be gone. But if you were investing in LinkedIn on 2017, 2018, oh man, and you stuck with it, you're reaping the rewards. People went even harder than me. Like, I actually wish I would have doubled down and went harder. I probably could have. The John Barrows of the world, the Scott Leases of the world. There's a lot of people that Morgan Ingram, right? Hundreds of thousands of followers. Adam Robinson now, for sure, over 100. Chris Walker, hundreds of thousands, right? But for me, I don't really need that necessarily. If it was a goal of mine, I probably could achieve it. But I'm just happy in my little space here, doing my thing. I got my clients. I'm doing good work. I don't need to be like ultra super famous, but I think I'm well known in the pockets that matter.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Obviously, some of the people you mentioned have businesses to run. They might be venture backed, or even if they're not, I guess if you have this ambition to grow something to millions, then I guess you step on the gas. But to make a nice little consulting life, I guess you'd call it lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Nothing wrong
You
with
don't need a
that.
lot. You don't need to do a lot, or
No,
at least back then, right?
no,
Now
no,
it's different.
yeah, no, you don't need to do a lot. There's nothing wrong with a nice little lifestyle, cash flow, positive business. It's so kind of like not glorified enough these days because everybody wants to be Wiz who gets acquired by how many billions by Google, but we can't all be a part of Wiz acquisition or
Sure.
whatever, right? So I don't know. We also can't all be Chris Walker. We can't all be Scott Leese. We can't all be Brad. Like you got to find who you are. Like I like you bring your flavor. You have a little bit of personality, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of quirkiness. You got the way you do it is totally you. Nobody could ever copy you. Same thing with me. Nobody could ever copy me because it's just way too unique. I see people trying to copy Chris Walker. It doesn't work. So I think that's another point too, is like just be who you are and don't try and copy because it just comes off as cheesy or it just doesn't work.
I agree with you 100%. In fact, reminds me, I mean, you see a lot of this these days, but I think it was last week, somebody who is I guess you could call them a creator or whatever, the consultant creator, they posted like their posts and then someone else kind of basically ripped their posts off word for word, side by side. And yeah, it was like, to probably many, it was a shock. But I think for a lot of people who are like maybe just naive and misunderstanding the way marketing and branding works, they're like, oh, this is a template. I would say like, in some ways, you think about the name of your old company, Sales Hacker, right? For a while, hacks were cool and encouraged, shortcuts, right? But there is no shortcut around building brand.
You can't do it anymore. You could, to an extent, use automation tools, LinkedIn post templates. You can copy other successful formulas, right? But here's the other point too. What spreads the most, what goes the most viral, so to speak, gets the most engagement, is often the stuff that is the lowest common denominator content. It's the stuff that's not going to really help you hit like real meaningful business goals. If I do a post that appeals super mega widely to all of B2B marketing, what's the overlap with the quality of people that I want to reach? It's probably going to be very small. So I've gotten better outcomes from posts that did not get the big, massive reach, but it hit the people that mattered a lot. So I would always encourage to stick to topics that help you align with the kind of person you want to reach with your message. And to an extent, that is influenced by your first degree connections because it prioritizes visibility to whoever you're directly connected with. And then the next tier down, of course, is second degree. So if you want to reach the right ICP, you do need to build a one-to-one connection with a lot of them because that's how your content gets prioritized in terms of visibility.
I love that recommendation. I'm just thinking about it myself. Obviously, I have this podcast, which is part of the way I'm doing that, but I'm actually thinking about doing another one where obviously it's cool to have all these people who made it, who are LinkedIn famous, who built careers off of it, the definition of LinkedIn famous. But what about all the other people on the other end of the spectrum who are more likely to want that, right?
Right.
So I've been thinking about another content vehicle for that. It's interesting you mentioned that.
Totally.
You talked about the hand-to-hand combat and building those connections. I'm kind of curious about your content game and what that, or maybe it might not look like the same way it used to, but when you were doing the hand-to-hand combat phase and what it's evolved to, how much time do you spend engaging with your first degree network, or even people who are prospects and whatnot that you could potentially do business with?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that the game has kind of flipped a little bit for me in terms of all that stuff. So I'll tell you one thing that I had to do as I started. I felt that I had to do this. I know not everyone does it, but as my visibility grew, I was getting hit with so much spam, like connection request spam, email spam. People were scraping my content. People were scraping my contact info and like texting me, It was ridiculous. I didn't realize my phone number was publicly visible. If you just try to find it through LinkedIn, you could get it. And so actually what I did was I blocked the ability for people to connect with me on LinkedIn. I put, you can only connect with me if you have my email address. And then I hid my email address. So in fact, what ended up happening was less people connecting with me directly unless I initiate. By default, once they go to connect and they can't, they automatically follow you.
Ah, that's smart.
Yes. And so if you don't want, and the reason why I realized I had so much low quality first degree connections is because every year when your birthday comes around, you get these horrifying, you know what I'm talking about. These horrifying, oh, happy birthday. A million people that are all spamming you happy birthday, right? It's just stupid. So and every year when I get those idiotic happy birthday messages, I'm like, all right, this is someone I need to prune out. This is someone I need to deconnect with, right? Because they serve no purpose to my real network. They just spam me or they never engage or whatever. So that's one thing I did. You can only connect with me if you know my email. Otherwise, you're blocked. You can't do it, but you follow me by default. So that's how I've grown a lot of followers without polluting my first degree connection network.
It's interesting because when I was in-house and in sort of leadership role in a SaaS company, everybody's trying to sell you something.
You're a target.
I have all these like followers / connections and it looks like a lot, but like
you're a moving target. And then every time you change company, all the job track change algorithm companies out there, everybody gets a notification. Oh, Brad has a new job. Bang. Congrats on this. Every time you raise funding, bang, a million DMs and emails and stuff. So
that's a great nugget there on how to kind of curate and prune your network. That first degree network is pretty powerful. And you've done a great job on sculpting that. Kudos to you.
Yeah. There's one other thing I'll say too. Yeah. And this is not a problem that most people are going to reach. But if you do grow a lot on LinkedIn, you will reach this problem. And I've seen Scott Leese talking about it. He actually maxed out his first degree connection limit. I didn't even know this was possible, but there's a limitation on how many first degree connections you can actually have. You can only have 30,000, which is a lot. That's a ton.
That is.
Right?
No one has 30,000 friends. What's
No one
that
has
rule
30,000
of
friends.
Dunbar's rule? Like you
Yeah.
probably have 150 relationships
yeah.
that are intimate, I guess, or
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. But the fact that you can only have 30,000 and that was maxed out, that's actually bad because a lot of that is probably not going to be great. Like maybe half of it is great, maybe a fraction of it is. But let's just say you're maxed out and it's like a lot of junk. Now what are you going to do? Now you're in a tough place. You got to go prune.
Yeah. You start with all the people in the Philippines and India.
Dude, yeah, I mean, you go basically.
No offense, just those people are always trying to sell you.
Yeah, they're always, I mean,
$100 services or something. Buy
totally.
links, sell links.
Totally. And look, I would say in 2018 was the Wild West. Like people were just connecting with everyone because they wanted to grow their networks to massive levels. But like the only thing that really matters is if you're connected to people, your space, your sphere. For me, of course, it's B2B marketing, VPs of marketing, CMOs, stuff like that. Even lower level B2B marketers, all good. I just want to also see other marketing content as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want to be there. So that's how you can curate and control it.
Oh, actually, you just mentioned something interesting. You mentioned seeing what's in your feed. How do you feel about some of the changes in the algorithm over there's a lot of changes happening recently. What do you think about that?
There's tons of changes happening. The TikTokification of LinkedIn is happening, of course. I tend to see a lot of junky stuff out there, to be honest with you. Maybe the personalization aspect is not quite caught up yet. I see like day in the life of a New York City B2B influencer. And it's just like a girl going to random offices, having avocado toast. And then the comments are like, oh, don't you work? I don't really want to see shit like that, to be honest with you. But before I even get into this, there's one thing I forgot to answer. You said comments, like the importance of comments. So I've noticed that sometimes if I am one of the first commenters on a post that really pops and my comment is wow, I get tons of followers and tons of engagement just off of comments. I can also strengthen relationships through comments. Like a lot of times I will leave comments on posts from people that I don't know. And many times they will reach out to me and say, damn, that was a great comment. I've been seeing your stuff. And that's another thing too. Almost always, whether I'm working with a client and I'm introduced to the employees for the first time, almost all of them say, dude, I've been following you for years. When a new CMO comes in, usually that's time to cut me. It doesn't happen. They want to double down even more. Oh my God, we're working with you. When I heard you were part of the company as a contractor, I was so happy. I've been following you for years. All that stuff can happen and be cultivated through not just posting content, but also comments. Now, the one bad thing that I need to get better at is actually responding or replying to the comments that I'm getting on my posts. Sometimes I just slip. There's so many. It's hard to get around to them all. I got to do better with that. Not replying to comments is actually really bad. But when you're busy and stuff, it's tough to make it happen.
Well, I think there's like a certain point, like a tipping point, become big enough and I have 50,000 followers, you're probably there. If you have a post that's a heater and a lot of people are engaged with it, it's kind of hard to go through and respond to every comment, right? And
it's tough.
You have a business to run too, right?
I have a business to run as well. Yeah, that's another thing too. Like you have to always be aware of the client dynamic or the company dynamic. One problem I faced was it became too visible when I was at Nextiva, right? Like I was more visible than anybody else at the company by far. And that actually became kind of a negative thing because they were like, dude, you're posting wild, controversial stuff, nothing negative, just heaters, right? And they were used to that. That was like a thing for them that they had never seen before. Like, gosh, this guy's getting hundreds of thousands of impressions on his posts. So they tried to reel me in a bit and get me to be more on board with brand guidelines and so on and so forth. But my rebuttal back to them was, look, I'm not going to be here forever. Sure, this is going to suck now, but the day's going to come where I move on and this problem will disappear. Not like I'm the CEO. Yeah. If anything, you should be trying to learn from me. I should be working with the CEO on founder-led content strategy for LinkedIn because it's rare for a 15-plus-year-old business. The same CEO, the same founder, That's very rare to see 15 years later, the same guy. So there's so much that could have been done from a founder-led content strategy standpoint. They should have been asking me for help instead of trying to kick a dog while he's down, but that's done, right?
Right, right. It's interesting too. You bring up an interesting dynamic. What I see is that oftentimes the founder-led motion is great early on, but at some point, the company is too big and there's too many problems going on, and the CEO's it all waterfalls down to the CEO, right? So that's when you see a lot of companies. Maybe they hit around 100 to 200 people. They have these eternal evangelists and whatnot, and very few people make it to the point where I guess you look at I don't know Sam Jacobs. I think Pavilion's pretty big and he's still pretty active. I think that's a rarity these days. What was the Nexiva CEO? Did he get active at one point?
Yeah. He was active at one point. I think he may even still be active even today. But to your point, on a company being so big, right, that maybe it's not worth it or it's hard to reach the right kind of people. And then even also the CEO to audience misalignment can be there. So for example, like Nextiva served 80% SMB. How many mom and pop small business owners running a mechanic shop in Iowa? How many of them are browsing through LinkedIn? Probably zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at some point it becomes a different game. It becomes like, let's post so that our partners can see our content and be top of mind. Our partners and resellers, I think they matter quite a lot. The channel partners, employees, boost of confidence of employees. Employees are going to see the CEO post and rah behind it. And then probably for some of the upmarket customers and brands, they'll probably see it. Competitors will probably see it. Analysts will definitely see it. Investors will definitely see it. So it becomes a multi-purpose game at that level, not just like, hey, how do we find customers through LinkedIn content strategy? I think when you're several hundreds of millions in revenue, it's a different game.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. I think you make a good point that there's a certain amount of, as a company grows, there's drift from the customer, right? So it's harder to tell those like really riveting stories where they're almost embedded with the customer. But when you're the founder at the early stage, and maybe that's even, you can do that up to 5 and 10 million and still keep tabs on what's going on and kind of put yourself in their shoes if you talk to enough of them. But eventually that becomes hard to do. It's hard.
Yeah, 1000%, man. I think like if you think about a business, even like Pipedrive, how relevant would it be for the CEO to start talking about B2B sales on LinkedIn? I mean, you could argue that because B2B sales are so deeply ingrained in LinkedIn that it could work. But I also think that the same tired topics won't work anymore. Like sales follow-up templates and all that one-on-one stuff that's kind of like prehistoric era. I think that's gone. And so you could make it work if you get more strategic. That's my
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. I think a company like Pipedrive, it's SMB, and how active are those people on LinkedIn? It's like to be determined. Maybe they're on Facebook or something like that, right?
Sure.
Or Instagram.
Right.
But
But also the other point too is, do you want those? I hate to even put it this way, but let's just say non-authority, non-budget, right? Lower level end users of the product, right? Like the kinds of people that are using Pipedrive. Yes, of course, it could be sales managers, but the majority of them are going to be the SDRs still banging on the doorsteps of prospects, right? So, I mean, is that who you want to pander to? That's the question.
right. I think it all comes down to your audience research. And I think you look at some of these bigger companies, I don't talk about mega companies, SAP, IBM, but within different business units, they probably have different, I guess, mini evangelists who are evangelizing products, and they get embedded with the customer and can do it in a way that seems authentic.
Totally.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about the impact of your investment in LinkedIn. And I talked a little bit, I guess, on the impact of on your career, but how has it impacted your life?
Oh, I mean, gosh, the ROI of LinkedIn personal branding and just being a part of the online ecosystem. The ROI is just ridiculous. You can't even put a figure on it. For me, it's the single most important thing I've ever done in my career. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, it's the number one reason why today a client fires me, which thankfully it hasn't happened, but if it does happen, I'd be okay. It's the number one reason why every time I've left the company, I immediately had another opportunity lined up directly after that. It's the number one reason why even today I still get referrals without asking. I just get introed and stuff like that. It afforded me to, live a great life, provide for my family, We never have to worry about paying bills. I come from a modest upbringing. My family's immigrant family, came here with nothing. And yeah, I mean, even some days I reflect on it and just say, damn, if my grandparents were alive today to know what I'm doing. My parents, they can't believe it, but just thinking about that lineage and how hard they had to sacrifice. Yeah, LinkedIn has been incredible.
That's a very heartfelt testimonial to LinkedIn.
It's true, man. I mean,
yeah.
of course, I worked hard and I developed a skill.
Yeah.
That's the other part too. You need to develop a skill and become an expert at it. Truly, you need to become an expert at it. If you become known as an expert, very difficult channel or subject, you will thrive. So that's the combination is expertise in a high demand field where it's very challenging to succeed. And then couple that with the referral ecosystem, the personal branding, the positive track record of success, a positive overall reputation of being a guy that's easy to work with, likable. I think that's a component too. Like you can't be an asshole, but get great results and expect to go far. It doesn't really work. Like I seen Keenan post that. He's like, I don't give a shit if people like you. If I can solve your problem, that's all that matters. Maybe some people believe in that, but when you're in my line of work, people got to enjoy working with you, man. You can't be a jerk off. So that's my view.
Some good career advice. Was there anything surprising or positive or negative about all this that has gone into LinkedIn and the impact?
I would say it's going to expose you a little bit. You know what I mean? So there's going to be challengers, right? So you got to be able to take hecklers, the negativity. You got to figure out how to bounce back from that. You don't want to get sucked into it too much, but I used to kind of argue back and forth with people. Now today, I only do it if it's a very respectful tone. If I see that it's going down this path of sideways and negativity, I just block the person. Because, yeah, when you're in-house at a company, what's the worst that can happen? Maybe you'll get fired. But if clients start to see that and you start losing clients because they think you're a jerk online, or you say something offensive, you step way out of line, and now you start losing clients, that's your reputation on the line. You actually can't afford that as a solo operator consultant. Now, on the flip side, I can also say that you have a lot more liberty to do what you want as a solo operator because there's no corporate overlords, right? And in fact, most of the clients that work with me love my approach to LinkedIn. They love my controversial points of view. They love that I'm willing to die on a certain hill about something. And yeah, you're going to alienate a lot of folks, but the ones that really what you're doing and talking about and they vibe with you, they're going to be fans for life. So I would stick with that.
That's some great advice. So we're rounding the corner towards the end of the episode. I got a mini lightning round for you. And maybe I'll start on that advice bit. Somebody comes to, who's, let's say they want to be a consultant like you, and it makes sense that they should be doing something on LinkedIn and they haven't done anything. Where would you tell them to start?
Well, I think it depends on like how deep in the hole are they? Do they have some sort of foundation? And then we'll break down what exactly does a foundation mean? Do you have some career history? Have you had some wins that you can publicize? And then that leads to the path back of case studies. One of the things that I really pushed hard, I don't do it as much now, actually, in my solo consulting work. I don't know why I don't do it a lot, but I used to do it a ton back in the day when I was in-house. I would always showcase my wins, always. Even if I had little micro wins, I would showcase them. If I did little experiments that were interesting, I would showcase them. And the reason why I did that is because nobody else was doing it. Everybody else was just doing the broetry stuff or doing stuff that could be easily copied. So I wanted to do stuff that no one could copy. And then I started doing case studies and I started pushing them on LinkedIn and I would pin them to my profile. People would find those damn case studies, man. People would go to your profile, see it pinned right there. When creator mode came out, that was a blessing because people would just see, bam, Cognizant case study, bam, Nextiva case study, bam, Aura case study, bam, podcast interview on Siege Media, bam, guest post on HBR, bam. Like you could showcase all that right there. And so that's the first piece is you need some sort of foundation. That's really key. And if you don't have any, you need to find a way to get something going. So So you need to like intern somewhere, or you need to get some wins, man. You can't just start building. I mean, you could without any wins, but it's hard because you're kind of like faking it, you know? So what are you going to say to people? How are you going to connect if you have like nothing? So you need something. So that's like kind of the first, like most important piece is like, what do you have? How can you develop some sort of asset or leverage? And then from there, you're much more interesting.
That is a great point. But by the way, next question in the lightning round. If you were running LinkedIn for a day, what is the first thing you'd change?
Oh my gosh. What is the first? Let me just see. I got to go to my feed, man, see what I don't like. I think probably this is such a good question, man. I think the notification systems are kind of janky. Like sometimes I go to notifications from my posts only and nothing shows up. I think the way they sort of default you opt into all this noise, and I get that they have to do that for engagement harvesting, but I find it to be a mega turnoff. And so rather than just default auto opting you into all these annoying preferences, it would be great for them to sort of have like a preference center that maybe asks you to update your preferences every couple of months or even to just reset maybe. Because I just see a ton of noise, like random, here we go, random person gets promoted to this position. I don't even know who this person is. Say congrats. I would get rid of that. Just because she's my first degree connection, I've never interacted with this person. So why, like stupid stuff like that, I think I'm kind of like tired of. I don't know. All the gimmick stuff, I guess you can't stop it. But yeah, I don't know. That would probably be my takeaway. I don't know if I have a great answer there.
Next question. Do you think LinkedIn in its current state is overrated or underrated?
I think in its current state, it's properly rated. I wouldn't say under, I wouldn't say over. I think it's priced to perfection. Right.
So that being said, I guess, let's say you have your foundation. Would you be ready to invest for a few years here if you had to start over?
Oh, 1000%. Yeah. I mean, if you just look at, if you're in B2B especially, it's a no brainer. Like, what do you got to do instead? You have to decide, what are your options? So let's lay out all the options on the table and really think about it. Okay. Blogging. That's kind of dead. Unless you're a prolific writer and you have some sort of pre-existing following where people are checking for your posts, or you're just going to go hardcore on SEO, which that's tough now.
Yep.
How are you going to distribute? So blog is kind of, okay, what else can you do? YouTube. That's hard, man. To grow YouTube, I don't know many who are doing that or can do that. I don't even think I could do that, man.
A lot of video editing is tough work.
Dude, who do you know that's cracking YouTube right now other than AHFs and maybe like Eric Sue from Single Brain, right? And they've been investing for years, 5, 6, 7 years, man. And then what else is there? Newsletter. That's also hard too. Podcast. Maybe the hardest. There's no built-in distribution for podcasts. So
LinkedIn, you gotta atomize it and distribute it. But I guess there's no podcast for there's bad distribution for the podcast itself.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But like, there's no podcast SEO. There's no, So, I mean, if you break down your avenues, it's YouTube, it's blog/personal website, it's newsletter, which is like really hard to build. And then it's like social platforms. So, and then out of the social platforms, it's basically just LinkedIn or YouTube for B2B. I mean,
what about X?
So I'm on there. It's very nichey. It's very pockety. So like SEO Twitter, I'll be honest with you, it has its ups and downs. It has a lot of negativity though on X. And then the default For You feed is like a lot of just like noisy stuff, engagement baity stuff. I mean, I think it's good for curating specific feeds. So I have like marketing geniuses with like 10 people that I really like. Then I have investment geniuses with 10 people that I really like. Then I have NBA with a few people that I like. Then I have Napoli soccer with a few people that I really like. That's what X I think is good for that feed curation. Probably LinkedIn should figure that out. I don't think they have just
like
yet.
The micro feeds.
The little micro feeds. Maybe that is something they could figure out. But I mean, X, it's hard to grow. It takes a long time. Like I would post on X for like 10 years, dude. I barely have 10,000 followers. Unless you're a rage bait posts, it just doesn't really go far. So.
That's a great answer. Okay. Who are you following and learning from on LinkedIn? Or maybe it's the same answer. Who do you think is crushing it on LinkedIn?
Okay, really, really interesting. I don't know if I can say there's like anyone. All right, so maybe let's start with this. What does crushing it mean to you?
I think they're just putting out really interesting content that like you when you see it in your feed, you're like, I'm gonna read this. I'm excited to see their content.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if I have anybody that I can say is in that category per se. Like, I'm going through my top feed right now, and it's like all, clients, former colleagues. I see stuff every now and then that's like, wow. And a lot of it is not really wow. A lot of it is like, okay, this is the pulse check of the B2B world right now. This is what people are talking about. Tim Solo from Ahrefs, he's posting about this. Amir from Hockey Stack, he's posting about this. Client is doing this. I actually have notification bells hit on all my client point of contacts. So anytime they post something, I immediately see that and then I can go engage. They really appreciate that. That's one little cool tip. But
Right.
I mean, in terms of who's killing it, I think anybody could be killing it, man. If you just stay consistent and post good stuff. Probably the litmus test is like, how generic is this? Before you press publish, you should maybe ask yourself, "Hey, has this been posted about millions of times? Or how easily reproducible would a post like this be?" And if it's like high on that scale, then maybe reconsider it, right? That's probably the way I look at it. But I mean, I don't know if I have any specific names, to be honest with you. Like I just I browse and I look, all right, here's a guy, Jason Fried from 37 Signals. He's usually like, wow. But there's very few like that. I don't know if I have off the top of my head a wow list. Maybe I should create one, but everybody's good, man. No one really stinks or sucks or whatever. Like, everybody that I try to follow and who's in my first degree at least are people of substance. So not every post is going to be a banger, but also I've been doing this for so long, nothing wows me anymore.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I kind of have this like numbing effect of like nothing can impress me anymore, right?
I would say it might be a thing of just being a B2B go to market because like this is where it all started, right? Maybe there's a little jadedness there, but I do think you're right in that when you look around our area, that's why everyone's kind of moving into video because like just the written word is, there's so many different versions of that parroting going on. And
Yeah.
you see companies like Audience Plus, like last year they were doing
Yeah.
Netflix style content.
Yeah.
And that's why video is becoming so big. So I think you make some fair points.
Yeah.
And
Well, you can't copy video. That's
yeah.
the good thing about video. It cannot be copied. It's why Chris Walker, he said he was doing video because people were copying his text posts and nobody can copy him on video, which I think is actually like a really interesting point on just uniqueness in general. But dude, video is tough, man, because I don't know about you, but I did a period of time actually a few years ago when I was working with Cognizant. They actually hired me to help them with influencer B2B marketing. And they viewed me as like one of the influencers who can help them reach B2B marketing persona. And so what they would do is they would give me a list of topics and they would say, dude, walk around with your phone in Miami and just rant on this topic. Do a vertical walking around video in Miami with an interesting background and just rant. Dude, those videos were very successful. In fact, the engagement was deep, but high reach. But a lot of people engaged with it, especially the right kinds of people. So I found with video, you're going to reach really the people you want, especially if the message is there, but it's not going to be like super wide reaching, viral, crazy, huge views. It's just going to be like, this guy went in depth on the current state of Google ads or something like that. So yeah,
I would say it depends though. Like with this new feed, like there's some weird, crazy stuff going on. You hear stories of people getting 1 million views. I had a client who did a video recently that went viral. But I mean, to be honest, we talk about virality. Is that as good as it sounds, right?
I think you're right, though. I think the shorts, the TikTokification style videos, they actually go very far.
Yeah.
And I think LinkedIn is juicing those up right now so that more people go and do it because they want to incentivize usage. But the videos that you will just upload directly to your feed, those get a lot less. And those were the ones that I was doing back in the day. Come out with the TikTok style yet when I was doing it.
I will tell you that one viral post of 1.5 million views ruined the guy's analytics because there's a spike and then a flat line. So now it's hard to kind of really see what's going on.
Yeah, totally. Hey, one thing that I think they could probably do better, even though they give you better analytics than pretty much any other platform, is probably post analytics could be better for LinkedIn. I'll tell you one example that I hate. So many people are a part of the Pavilion group that like anytime I post something, it's like 800 people from Pavilion viewed your profile. This doesn't mean anything to me because it's just, this is the herd masses. This is the gen pop of B2B. So it doesn't tell me anything. So I wish there was a way to like filter out if it's from a group like Pavilion, you could just mute it or something.
Right. That's a community play.
Yeah.
Well, that was a jam-packed lightning round. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And maybe now's a good time to land the plane. I know you probably have some clients to chat with later. Is there anything exciting going on? Anything at your consultancy that you want to plug? Or any projects you're working on?
Yeah. I mean, I guess by the time this episode drops, the ink will be dry on the dotted lines. But I do have some pretty big news, actually. I'm joining SEM Rush as a consultant to help them with search engine land. So I'm going to be working on the search engine land property that they acquired through Third Door Media. I'm going to be working to improve the visibility of organic search on SE land. So pretty excited about it. That's going to start up soon. So yeah, you should be seeing more noise from me as a guest contributor as well on search engine land.
That is very exciting. Congratulations. And everybody, if you haven't already yet, go follow Gaetano. And otherwise, till next time, let's stay connected.
Peace.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow Brad and Spectimer on LinkedIn for hot takes and tactical executive branding advice. For the readers in the audience, subscribe to LinkedIn Famous on Substack. And if you really loved this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting platform of your choice. Until next time, stay bold, authentic, and keep on creating.